prove it, the elderly man led him to the backyard to show my uncle the woman's grave, and there, in the moonlight, was a freshly dug grave. My uncle was a bus driver back then, always travelling from city to city, under a popular transport agency in town. He used to carry passengers from one city to another throughout the day. He will pack the bus and the agency's bus station wherever night meets him. He will spend most of the nights outside, with the pretext that night caught up with him when he was outstation. His wife was already used to that. She, however, suspected his nightly absences were for more than just work. She was sure her husband used that as an excuse to have multiple girlfriends around. She was not wrong. We all knew he had different women in every town. Whenever night meets him in another city, he will spend that night at a hotel with a call girl. It was a different one every night. My uncle's wife had threatened to leave him if he didn't change his ways several times. His friends and close ones had also warned him about his careless life. They told him about the dangers he was courting, but he just laughed it off, thinking nothing could ever go wrong. One night after his last trip, my uncle was heading to the bus station when he spotted a beautiful woman standing by the road. She was alone, surrounded by darkness, and though she did not stop my uncle, he, however, stopped the bus, drawn by her stunning beauty. He offered her a ride. She accepted and boarded the bus, and they drove off. They talked as he drove. After introducing himself and asking her name and a little about her, he made his intentions clear. He wanted to spend the night with her. To his surprise, she agreed easily. She even invited him to her house, saving him the trouble of paying for a hotel. He dropped her off near her house. To prove he'd return, he gave her his jacket and hat. He quickly parked the bus at the station, bought some food, and eagerly headed back to her house. But when he arrived, something felt off. The house was larger than expected, and he heard voices inside. He knocked and entered, finding a family in mourning. They welcomed him, but their expressions turned somber when he asked for the woman. At the mention of her name, the women began to weep. My uncle was confused. An elderly man, clearly the head of the family, told him the woman had died a week ago. Today was the final day of her funeral rites. My uncle was stunned. He couldn't believe it. He insisted he had just spoken with her a moment ago. The family looked at him with a mix of fear and pity. The elderly man showed him a picture hanging on the wall. It was her, the woman he had just met. But how? She was dead. The confusion was overwhelming. To prove it, the elderly man led him to the backyard to show my uncle the woman's grave, and there, in the moonlight, was a freshly dug grave. On the cross, marking the grave, hung my uncle's jacket and hat. The realization hit him like a punch. He had been with a ghost. His heart pounded. His legs shook. Without a word, he turned and ran, fleeing the house and the town, leaving his jacket and hat behind. He didn't stop until he reached his bus, driving it straight home, vowing never to return to that haunted place.